Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the T.H.O. Movie Reviews podcast, the show where we bring you passionate, honest, and insightful film criticism. I'm your host, Bennett Campbell Ferguson. I'm at Kells on Northwest 21st in Portland, Oregon. And I'm joined today by some of my wonderful colleagues, starting with Mo Shaunette. Mo, have you recovered from the movie we just saw?
We're getting there, man. I got myself a Shetland pony, which is a Moscow mule with whiskey. So we'll see how we are at the end of this drink.
I like it. I like that. I like your style. Maxwell Meyers, we also have him here. Max, you were shaken when we walked out of the theater, like all of us. How are you doing?
I believe I got up first and said, I have to go to the bathroom. I felt like my father right then. I need to go. And now I also have a drink. Mine's just a cider because I have to drive in 45 minutes.
Good to know. Good to know. Good for you staying safe.
I'm very safe about drinking my light alcoholic drink before I drive.
And also here we have Patrick Belin. Patrick,
Hello. Sitting here with my Irish lager, so I'm doing great.
Now that we all know what we're drinking.
And you and I are old Aronofsky fanboys, so I imagine you're excited to get into this. Because, in case I didn't mention, we're talking about Darren Aronofsky's mother.
Just a quick statement. I would say that he completely redeemed himself for this.
Darren Aronofsky's mother.
Mother. Okay, we need to all say that at once just to practice good, try and get the lowercase m and the exclamation point. So 1, 2, 3, mother! Okay, it's time to get into this. It's time to roll. It's time to just throw our cards on the table, say what we thought of the movie.
It's time to play the music, it's time to light the lights.
Which is funny since this movie had almost no music.
I call father.
But,
yes!
Mo, sum it up for us. What did you think?
The fuck, yo. The fuck.
And we are off to a rollicking start.
The fuck. I would have also called it that.
Content warning, we will be using explicit language.
And we will also have spoilers.
We will have spoilers.
Spoilers, there will be explicit language and spoilers.
So overall thoughts. Let's try to crack that nut.
Could you distill that for us?
I can't say that I liked it, but I can say that I appreciate it.
Interesting.
Wait, did you say you can't say you like it and you can't appreciate it?
I can say I appreciate it. I think...
That means you didn't like the movie.
I didn't like watching the movie.
There's a distinction. There's a distinction.
I didn't like watching the movie. I'm not one for horror films usually, so I'm probably not the right person to talk about this. And this is also you wouldn't call this a horror movie?
Well, okay, it was horrific to watch, but not because it was a horror movie.
This is the first time I've seen an Aronofsky film, which puts me woefully behind as a film nerd, but there you have it. I can appreciate it's well-made tension, it's well-made adrenaline, it's strong in emotion. If a movie can get me on the right emotional wavelength, I can appreciate it for that. If it can get me out of my own head. I can't say it was a good time. So, heads up on that.
Max, what about you? I believe a word spelled H-A-T-E was used when you exited the theater.
Oh my god, I believe I turned to Ben and I said, I hated that movie. And thankfully Ben goes, so did I. I'm like, oh thank god. If I have to sit at the table and be the only person who hated that movie, or the only one that didn't get it for some reason, I'm going to be so mad. I think there are some parts of this movie that work really, really well.
I would. Speaking of which, I would say, it's kind of a whiplash effect. I mean, did I dislike it overall? Yes. The parts I liked, I was really into.
That's kind of how I feel. It's like I was not happy that I spent money on this movie. I would not recommend this movie to anyone. I would say rent this movie at Redbox. And if anybody knows me at all, knows I hate Redbox because I worked for an independent video store, and I would still say go rent this one for $1. If you're really that interested. Which is so sad because there was, like I said, there were a lot of parts that I really liked. The direction in it is really good. I don't know if anybody else noticed, the movie takes place from Jennifer Lawrence's perspective, and the camera is on her the entire time.
It's not
I
just,
did think about that,
It's
yeah.
not just that, but it's always these close-ups. Even
It's
when they're
very
doing like
close.
shot reverse shot, where it's like, oh, they're supposed to be the same size on the screen. No, it's always right up on her face.
Yeah,
And the
and
really
then
striking thing is that if someone leaves the room and leaves her alone, we don't go with them. We always
which
stay with her.
I have seen done. That was actually a key thing that I noticed in the movie Amor a few years ago, the German film about an elderly couple who die. Always a
Love
fun
German
topic.
films, so
but
cheerful.
but in that movie there's a really great part where someone comes to visit, and instead of following the couple, who's the main topic of the story, they stay with the guest who ends up sitting in a room awkwardly alone, in a way that was really striking. And even in this movie, if the camera was not on Jennifer Lawrence, it was from her perspective. And that was something I haven't actually really seen done before, which was really interesting. There was some tension that was built really well at the beginning and at the end. I really like the quiet moments of this movie. It seemed that when the things in it get really chaotic, it really got muddled. The writing in it is not great. The plot is not great. Like, the things that I think that make a movie really great weren't good. And that's, other than maybe the acting, and that's really only because it was undercut by the terrible writing, in my opinion, and bad plot. Which is a shame, because I think Michelle Pfeiffer did a really good job with what she was given, and so was Jennifer Lawrence, and I even think to an extent Javier Bardem and Ed Harris. But it's such a mess. And I think the best description I used, which I said is, as a baker, I said, just because I make a bad cake, and you go, well, I really like the fact that you use sugar, does not make it a palatable meal or a great dessert, just because I remembered the key ingredient to a dessert, which is sugar. That would be my overall summary of this movie.
Patrick, I knew you liked the movie. Let's
Okay.
turn
the tide.
Yeah.
I'm probably in the minority opinion here, but I mean, I can really understand why it's not a crowd pleaser, but personally,
I'm laughing at Mo laughing.
it's not. Yeah,
Understatement.
yeah,
This is
exactly.
like that scene in Harry Potter.
But
when the
I would
Order of
have
the
to
Phoenix.
say it was very well done. It's one of the best movies I've seen this year. I gave it 3.5 stars, and I took off the half star because I'm not sure that I agree with the strategy they did with the photography, but everything else worked.
With
Everything else
are you
worked
thinking
really
of the perspective, or more like the handheld, work?
See, the more from the beginning of the film, I could see that they were going for this up close, a little bit of shaky cam, trying to create a sense of dis-ease, even though the setting and the first act was very idyllic. There was nothing wrong with it, but the camera was very anxious. It was a very anxious camera, so that it was trying to convey this information to the audience where not all is what it seems. But at the same time, it was giving me a headache. I'm not a huge fan of that, but the more I think about it, it works. I mean, that's what they were trying to do. And if it's not a crowd pleaser, I think it's because the director wanted it to not be a crowd pleaser. And writing-wise, I think it was really well done.
Yeah, the writing is interesting because we have a screenplay that is deliberately vague. We accept, like, from the beginning that these characters are not human beings. They're almost kind of mythological archetypes, with Jennifer Lawrence being this like kind of giving Mother Nature goddess figure, and Javier Bardem, like the kind of like just this primal yet impotent masculine force.
I think they tried to ease into that surreal sense of it slowly throughout the movie. Again, I think I mentioned as we were walking here, after the first act, I chose to view the film as a comment on celebrity culture, and so when I viewed the whole thing through that lens, the second and third act made perfect sense, and it didn't
Made enough
probably
sense.
I was gonna say.
Well, I
it
mean,
worked for me.
continuing on. I mean, I think I fall kind of in line with Mo. I think I'm between you, Max, and you, Patrick. I mean, the parts I I liked of it, I loved. I mean, the kind of the scenes, where the house is spiraling out of control and you've got a SWAT team coming in. It's almost like you're seeing
That was the best part of the movie.
It was. You're seeing the entirety of...
favorite part.
See, what I liked about it is you're seeing the entirety of civilization refracted through this one house, and I thought that was pretty brilliant. But, and here comes the but, I had a problem with it that I have with a lot of Aronofsky works, as much as I adore him, because I think The Fountain is one of the greatest movies in the history of cinema. The thing is... I love Darren Aronofsky, but he's Aaron Mesh, who I got to work with. I've gotten to work with. I'm at Week now. He when he was a head film critic there, he called Aronofsky the absent-minded sadist, and I think
I can see that.
I think he used that term because as great a storyteller as Aronofsky is, sometimes he slips into not horror but just pure sadism. And I think he sometimes mistakes sadism for depth. I said we're going to do spoilers, and I'm not going to go back on that pledge. There's a scene, as I'm sure is now burned into you guys' psyches, where a baby is killed and then its remains are eaten. There was also...
I wasn't even surprised when that happened.
I was because, and here's the thing. Aronofsky also, apparently he's got a baby thing because there also was a baby that was, terrifyingly threatened with a knife in Noah. And for me, there are certain lines you do not cross. And I think it is wrong to show that kind of awfulness on screen. I'm all for testing the limits. As much as I hate movies, I made it through the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, through sheer will, and believe me, it was not easy. But
honestly, not the worst of the horror.
I know that. But for me. But the thing is,
defend Aronofsky on this. But go ahead and make your point.
Yeah. But the thing is, I think at a certain point you cross the line. What are you doing that for? And to my mind, when he crossed that line, he was only making the movie for himself and to show how tough he is, to show that he will go there. And I think, and that's why I ultimately disliked the movie, even though I would actually say I enjoyed the majority of it. That part, and also kind of the ending, which I thought was kind of prosaic and didn't, really open it up.
Yeah, the ending didn't really jump.
Yeah, it was too formulaic.
It felt like I think. Twist.
No, there was. That's the problem. I felt like there was no twist. I was waiting for the twist.
Well, can I just chime in real quickly? I hate to interrupt you.
Yeah.
But this is why I say the writing is bad. Granted, all of us here see a lot of movies, so I think we're privy to plot, maybe more so than most people. I feel like it's a little bit harder to pull the wool over our eyes.
That's fair. Yeah.
The issue I had with this movie, and specifically with the writing and the plot, is that, believe it or not, I kind of saw everything coming before it happened. Don't get me wrong, some of those I was like, oh, please don't murder the baby and then eat it. But at the same time as Mo said, I wasn't really surprised. Like, don't get me wrong, watching it happen was visceral and I had a reaction.
Sure,
but at the same time, but when it happened, I wasn't surprised.
She's the main character in a horror movie. She doesn't get to be happy.
Well, that's really my point, and that's when I say bad when writing is bad. It's like, not only is it predictable, but you're not surprised. It doesn't do anything new, and I get it. The baby is a physical representation of literal innocence.
I think he
really
the metaphor taken to its logical extreme. She gives him everything.
She literally gave him everything, and that's the problem. Is like, you're like, I'm not surprised, and I mean, if you're gonna use a very blatant metaphor, like, at least catch me off guard with it.
Sure.
And
the Molotov cocktail surprised me more than anything.
Oh, the explosion, anyone getting shot in the head, Kristen Wiig showing up alone was enough of a surprise.
Kristen Wiig becoming a one-woman firing squad.
Yeah,
like down executions left and right.
2 at a time. I'm like,
oh yeah.
So I mean, so that was more shocking than literally a baby being eaten alive. Kristen Wiig? Well,
see, I'm glad that they weren't so gratuitous with that scene.
No,
they showed just enough to show you
that with the baby scene.
But
the idea was indulgent enough without them being really visceral about it.
It wasn't very Eli Roth.
Yeah. I mean, also at that point, the audience is already in this surreal environment. It's not like in a real world anymore.
Yeah, we've kind of passed that point.
You're right. Yeah.
I mean, the towards the end of the second act and the third act was completely like you're in like Alice in Wonderland territory.
But you said you wanted to say more about defending Aronofsky.
Oh no, that's what I was gonna say.
Okay.
So
I feel like Aronofsky was working through some things.
I didn't feel like it was going too far. I felt like it went where it had to go.
So here's the question I want to ask you. In terms of where it goes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm probably gonna get some later.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. In terms of where it goes, I mean, how would all of you interpret it? Because I mean, you know, in a lot of ways, it's a pretty broad movie because there's kind of a fairy tale, you know, elemental aspect.
So I would have to kind of. I think we can all agree that Javier Bardem's character was the bad guy in this.
Was the bad guy?
Of course, yeah.
I mean, from the beginning, he started as normal and then just devolved into this bad guy character.
He's almost a bad guy through like sheer neglect, you know, because he's until a certain point in the film, he's literally impotent, and his inaction is really what causes, you know, everything that happens.
And I use the word guy lightly in this. I didn't view the characters as real characters either. Again, I was viewing this as a comment on celebrity culture, and that Javier Bardem's character was like representing the really negative, bad side, the dark side of celebrity culture, whereas Janet J. Law's character was like of course, humanity, like normal humans.
I would say he was both. He was creativity and celebrity. It's the idea that he did craft a piece of work that touched many people, that saved many lives. That I don't know if they saved many lives, but it touched a lot of people, and it was very important to these people. And then it's the celebrity. It's allowing this toxicity into his home, this destruction, just because it feeds his ego and it feeds his creativity and his passion.
The dark side of celebrities.
I thought it was both, but mostly the negative, because again, it's Jennifer Lawrence's point of view. It's her character, and she's just seeing how these people are intruding in her life.
I think the. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say. This might be a spoiler, so just so everyone knows,
We're
this
in
is
spoiler territory.
well. I know, but I wanna. This is like, I mean,
You're
okay. So
looking out for
at the
viewer.
very end of the movie, what was it that Javier Bardem said that he is life, and that she is hope?
Is that what he said?
I
thought he said that she is home.
Oh, I thought he said she was hope. Damn, that thick Spanish accent.
I thought he said I am I and she is home.
Oh, I thought he said I am life and you are hope. And that's why he literally takes all the hope that she has left, which is literally pulling the heart out of her chest.
The final scene was the conclusion.
Only to start everything over. Oh, well, that was like the only thing she had left to give.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I don't know.
She was his home. She was his stability. She was...
Oh, see, now... Okay, what did you guys think he said? I need... Real quick. Not that I'm discounting you at all.
I have no idea, to be honest.
Patrick?
So what did he say? The line that was most important to me was when they were... Her last words were, "You never loved me. You loved that I loved you."
Well, no, but what I'm asking is when he's with that line. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like he literally defines what they are. Did he say, "I am life. You are hope"? Is that what he said?
No, I didn't. I have to see it again. I didn't clear onto that line, but
you have fun with that one by yourself. Because see, I thought he said, "I am life. You are hope," and I was like, I felt like. If that was the line, because now I'm really unsure. I was gonna say, if that was the line, that was him basically explaining the movie, and I was like, and that's what really bothered me. I was like, we got to the end, and I was like, you created something so convoluted that you literally had to explain it to me at the end. I was like, that's like explaining a joke. It's no longer funny.
That would make sense if he would call himself life and she is hope. That's what he covets in her so much.
Yeah.
That's why he turned her into a crystal.
Yeah.
And that's why he was so upset at the end of the first act.
Although I will say, seeing the ending did make the beginning... I was like, what the fuck is up with the acting in this opening sequence? But then after watching the ending, I was like, Oh, okay. That will say that was the only thing I was like, okay, that redeemed the beginning of it a little bit.
Also, I never viewed the setting as a real place.
I didn't either. No.
Oh no.
Definitely.
I mean, it was. I mean, at
metaphorical.
first it was like, oh, this is the house, but then yeah, I think once she reads the poem, I think you really get an idea that there's something. Well, you get
Well,
an
there's
idea that
obviously-
there's
there's
something
obviously
really weird going on here.
There's obviously supernatural things afoot, and she's frightened, but she doesn't question them. She doesn't say, you know, I'm going to call Ghostbusters. You know, I mean,
I think I leaned over
I
to.
didn't see it as supernatural. I just saw it as a
Oh.
not real place.
It's
It was a surreal-
metaphorical.
See, actually,
It was
I leaned over to Mo and I said, "It's Rosemary's Baby, the funeral edition."
See, the,
And then it happened. I was like,
I kind
oh.
of saw a little bit of an allusion to Alice in Wonderland. Like, before the movie even begins, there's a scene where Jennifer Lawrence falls into a hole. That's how I viewed it. And then the whole movie takes place in that after she falls into the hole.
do you think that her character is like a real person? This is almost like her avatar in this dreamland?
See, that's
or-
the thing. After the first act, I didn't view any of the characters as real people.
Okay.
I think that would maybe make the movie better, but I almost feel
Which
like
is why I didn't view the baby as a real person.
I almost feel like there's too many ideas here. And it's getting a little one. Like, I'm glad that you're able to. Again, we have
Oh, that's how I chose to see it.
one. And honestly, hearing that, watching the movie again might make it better. And I think, and when you said it, I was like, oh yeah, I kind of felt that too, and now that makes sense. But I feel like there's almost so many things going on. It doesn't make sense, and it reminds me of like an album from the '70s by Frank Zappa.
It's-
Like at the time, it seems like nonsense, and I think maybe as time goes on, maybe we'll look back and go, actually, there was a lot more going on here than we remember. But it will still be nonsense. I think it really will.
It does.
Well, I
it-
mean-
to me, it just feels like part of the reason I don't like it. It feels like he's using the whole "it's metaphorical" thing as a cop out. Like it's things just kind of happen and they don't necessarily need to make sense, but it's all right because it's metaphorical.
The dialogue
Well,
is-
I see. I even though I don't like the film, I would disagree with that because I feel like there is a coherent idea that's tying all this together. I mean, let's go back to the line. I gave you everything. You know, she makes this world. She builds this house up from nothing. She creates the world she lives in. She is the master of this universe essentially. And yet he lets that universe, you know, become overwhelmed by violence and destruction and even pollution in the form of the cigarettes. You know, I stand by the theory I mentioned, which I think she is Mother Earth, and I think he and the people represent all of humanity. You know, and you know, tarnishing this planet. And the thing
So
is,
then does that mean Javier Bardem is God in this?
no,
universe?
no,
Just
he's
kinda
not God.
passive?
He's you know, he is us because, you know, humankind is passive. You know, humankind, you know, allows like horrible pollution to run rampant. And then at the end, you know, he picks up the crystal, he restores the house. You know, the cycle, you know, starts all over again. And,
If
you know,
this-
and you know, I'm going to get political, so here we go.
Oh my
But look,
goodness.
you know, we've got this we've got horrific natural disasters ravaging the world right now, you know.
Only in 2017 could natural disasters be politicized.
Oh, I don't know about that, but the thing is, I mean, you know, already we're hearing, you know, a lot of people are saying, you know, immediately saying it's not global warming. It's disrespectful to even ask that question, and you know, so the cycle starts again. The cycle of, you know, rising from the ashes and destruction, just as it goes in this movie. So the movie ultimately didn't work for me. I do feel like there is a coherent thought behind it, and I feel like the metaphor has weight and it's well thought out.
If we're to follow the logic of this as a metaphor for religion, I would argue that Javier Bardem is God. He initiates the creation of this universe, of this world, by placing the crystal, by reviving the house, and by bringing in Mother.
That's an interesting idea.
And yeah, everyone else represents humanity, all the people intruding on this
idyllic land.
idyllic. I was gonna say natural, but that wouldn't be exactly correct. But they are intruding on this idyllic land. They are bringing with them their ills, their toxicity.
It's almost like the Garden of Eden in a way.
Yeah, and it's maybe there's I don't know for me, that doesn't entirely work out because I'm not a religious scholar. I'm going to put that up front, but
What?
Garden of
Everybody
Eden was,
here, raise your hand if you're not a religious scholar.
What, like...
Oh.
I'm a very
I mean, I just
highly
feel.
esteemed religious scholar, so I can't raise my hand.
But
Right
for
on.
me, like Garden of Eden was always about the danger of knowledge, and is it necessary to know about sin, essentially, if that brings the rest of the knowledge with the world? And I didn't see that much here. I don't know. Maybe it's heaven instead of the earth. And it's like once you start letting people into the kingdom, they bring everything terrible with them.
That just sounds like a comment on humanity. I would say, I never really viewed Jennifer Lawrence as a Mother Nature type character. I actually viewed her more in line with Patrick. I feel it's the sane brain in Hollywood, and I really feel like that comes through, especially in Lawrence's performance, because she's had to deal with it. She's still young. She's young enough to know that this is weird. Like, the politics that goes into a lot of Hollywood culture. I mean, even dating back to, the 50s, where it's like, well, you're pregnant, we gotta get you a husband so that way it doesn't look weird. I mean, it's not talked about today, but it still happens. There are weird things like, oh, you need to promote a movie, you need to have a girlfriend on your arm. Why? Because it makes you look better to the public perception. So I feel like Lawrence has been in it long enough to know that there is a game, there's a hierarchy to Hollywood. But she's still young enough to know it's insane. It doesn't make sense. And you're right. Viewed through that lens, I really feel like Aronofsky is commenting on Hollywood. I really do. But, that being said, Ben makes a good point. The title is called Mother. Like, you feel like, and this is why it's like...
No, the title is called Mother.
Mother! Mother! Depending on how you want to say it. So, you bring in the mother aspect. I don't know, I think it makes sense to... Almost like a normal person. At times I have wondered, I was like, could you imagine being in that system? Like, you need all the adoration, like, or you find someone that's like, who is truly an auteur or an artist who maybe at one time created something really great that affected a nice chunk of people, but now they're waiting for that next big thing, and you're waiting, and nothing's coming. Oh, but then all of a sudden something comes along that inspires you to make this one thing, and that touches everyone, and now you're kind of drunk on the idea of having everyone's approval to the point you're willing to give everything, including your own child, just to please them. She was like, send them away, and let this just be our thing. And he's like, nope, I even want them in on our baby, which they then devoured. Literally.
Let's break it down to its most essential things. I thought, first of all, the title was a direct reference to Jennifer Lawrence's character.
Yes.
The most
Okay.
Definitely.
the most
Name,
important,
according to IMDb.
Awesome.
the most important relationship was between Javier Bardem and Jennifer Lawrence's character.
Definitely.
And maybe this is not explicitly stated, but I thought there were enough hints to tell me that this was a comment on celebrity culture, especially with the publicist, with the adoring fans, with the crazy fan who lied from the very beginning just to get closer to him. I thought that was pretty obvious to me, and that caught on to me. And another reason why is because, I mean, I'm obviously not a celebrity, but from what I understand with celebrities and actually being a celebrity, is that a lot of them, they like being a celebrity, but they hate being a celebrity at the same time, because they really want to be like a normal, regular person. And that's what Jennifer Lawrence's character was representing.
That's what Jennifer
yet
Lawrence
have-
wants to be
you
as
have-
her image, really.
You have Javier Bardem, he has this crystal, and that was his previous victim in that story. But you can see how they really adore what it means to be a regular person. Like, they really want that so bad. Like,
To the point that
he's
they're...
trying to please.
And the crystal's a metaphor for that, you think? Or?
No, that's what it represents. Because of course, at the end, we saw him pull it out of her chest, and it became a new crystal. And why he was so upset at the end of the first act that the crystal shattered, because he needed another one like that, and which is what set his character arc through the second and third film.
So there's one thing I want to get into here. I think the observation that both of you made about celebrity culture. I mean, that's spot on. I mean, as you said, we've got the publicist, we've got the fans, a frenzy that I think would probably terrify even the Beatles in their heyday. But one thing I want to say is that I feel like that's a part of it, but I feel like it's also bigger than that, because you've literally got scorched earth. You've got these characters that are like so simple, like so archetypal. It's almost like there's it just feels like huge and mythological, and even like with the thing and the heartbeat in the wall. It's almost cosmic.
This is my take on this.
Okay.
What the script was getting at is not reality. It's the script the script was focused on a phenomenon of celebrity culture, which is why the entire setting of the film, the house, the wind, the lighting, everything does not exist. Which is why, we saw like these images, like there's blood on the floor, like things didn't make sense. It wasn't supernatural. It wasn't trying to get into this horror film supernatural territory. The whole setting just didn't exist. The characters don't really exist. That's how I viewed it.
Well, is it another Noah's Ark? If it ends with just him scorching the earth and then starting over?
In a way it is.
The comment the finality that I took from it is that the bad side of that celebrity culture will keep on going, and it has been going since the beginning of time.
It's not going to stop.
It's not going to stop. Yeah, it's probably never going to stop.
No.
It's like a phenomenon that just keeps feeding into itself. That's what they were trying to emphasize, I think.
I want to go back to the Noah's Ark thing, because I think the thing is, in the Legend of Noah's Ark, and in Aronofsky's film, and which are closer than a lot of people would acknowledge. Interestingly enough. He didn't invent. He invented the stone monsters that look like Transformers and not much else. But the thing is, in both versions of the Noah story, there's hope. There's the horrifyingness of the earth being purged of all humanity, and there's just this one family left. But they're together. It's nice. The sun will come out again. I didn't feel like that in Mother, because yes, the sun comes out again. But because the beginning and the end are literally the same, and the cycle is just beginning again, and she'll yet again lose her child, or have some other kind of tragedy. So there's a real sense of like hopelessness and doom and circular tragedy.
So I will point this out, and I'm just going to say this. Ben, I love you so much, and I love that you want to see the good in people you love, and I believe that Aronofsky is truly an artist. He really is. His movies, as I think, I don't know if I said this on I don't know what this is, recording, that his movies are really meant to be seen twice. You get to the end and you're like, unlike Shyamalan.
I'm not seeing this again.
Well, no, not this one, but like Black Swan, I think is really my best examples. Once that movie ended, I wanted to see it a second time because it really had a new filter through the next one, through the second time. I don't think this is one of those instances. I don't want to sit through this movie again. I don't want to pay for this movie again. And I love that you see a grander scale of the scorched earth and Mother Earth and all these things. But I have known some actors to be a little, how would I say, overdramatic. Maybe the people in the Hollywood industry a little bit. I honestly think that maybe you might be seeing more in, like, I think you're seeing more of a deeper meaning. I know this is gonna sound bad, only because I love Patrick too, but I really feel like his is kind of spot on. And no offense, a lot of celebrities get into the system and they hate it. They hate it so much but they can't say anything either because what are you gonna say? Oh, I hate making movies. And I really feel like, but I think Aronofsky, I honestly feel like this movie felt like someone was working through something. At times it felt just like emotion. It literally felt like, I'm angry, there's explosion, there's people caged, people are being shot for no reason. Oh, there's inspiration, shoot them. Like, there was so much stuff that was just happening so fast, and so, like, honestly, I don't want to call Aronofsky a drama queen, but a lot of people who get in the system, they kind of, make a lesion out of a thorn in their pot. and it happens. And honestly, I love that you see the scorched earth as some form of political message. And I think there are some movies that would make that connection. Honestly, I feel like Aronofsky is just like, I'm fucking sick of the system, and this is my movie to tell you how I feel about it. And that's why it doesn't make sense. I feel like people.
I'm going to have a lot to say. When you're done, right?
I thought this was.
I feel like people in the system would actually go, I get it. And us on the other side are just going, what the fuck just happened?
Okay. Here's the thing. I think people on the inside of the system. I mean, Leonardo DiCaprio has said himself, hey, I'm a celebrity, my privacy's invaded. He already acknowledged that, but he says, I also live a very blessed life. And a lot of celebrities will tell you that, and that's why I agree that this is about celebrity culture. I don't agree that it's just about celebrity culture. I think it's much bigger than that. Yeah, I'll say it. Aronofsky is a drama queen, but here's the thing. I'm not reading the political message in there. It is in there. That's what this movie is. That's what all Aronofsky's movies are, because he is political. In Noah, he makes Noah a vegan. That's a political statement right there. He is very much a political filmmaker. He's made movie after movie, ridiculing kind of obsessive, out of control, aggressive masculine desires. That is in this film as well, with Javier Bardem. Courting the publicity. That's a political statement as well. And I think obviously what you said is it's fair to say well, I don't think Aronofsky meant it that way. I think he's just blah, because I agree with what you're saying about it's explosion. And I think kind of Aronofsky's a very all his films try to be intellectual, but I think sometimes it is pure instinct, sometimes it is pure drama. But I really stand by what I say, that there is a political message. Now, again, I don't think that makes this a good movie, but I do think it makes this a movie with a purpose and a reason to exist.
Can I make a side comment? Because you brought up Noah quite a few times. I
Yes, yeah.
don't view Noah as an Aronofsky movie.
Interesting.
Because I've read reports here and there that after they've shot in post-production while they were making the movie, and the very first edit, the Aronofsky edit, the execs completely did not like it.
Okay, I have to stop him for a second.
And
so
they actually made significant changes to it.
So here's what happened. There's a New Yorker profile of him that goes into detail on this. He did a cut of the film. The studio it was pretty close, and the studio executives were like,
They were afraid of the religious group backlash.
They were. So here's what happened. They took the movie out of his hands. They recut it significantly. They cut out a lot. They shortened it, and they put a Christian rock song at the end. Then they screen tested that version. Guess what happened? It did not test any better than Aronofsky's original cut. The audiences didn't like that any better. So, and this is a true story, they actually went back to his original cut, and that was the cut they released because they thought, I assume he's, the cuts are testing the same, we may as well back the horse we started with. So I think
is that how it really played out?
That is how it really played out. Yeah. This was investigated by I think it was Tad Friend who wrote this piece, but it was it's an incredible insight into Darren Aronofsky's mind, and a lot of the things that all of you are saying. If you read this, you will see that in there. You'll see the kind of the idealism and the ambition and the politics, but also the drama queen and the kind of the egocentrism as well.
Matter was above his head then.
Sure,
he was not the right director for it.
No argument there.
I will also point out, and just I once took a poetry class, and I had this. We had to, we all had to write just a poem. Like, it was our first assignment, and mine got selected to be analyzed, with 5 others.
Uh-huh.
They just that was the thing. Every class. Well, no, especially every week you come in, it's all right, write a poem, and then the next class, all right, we're gonna analyze these 5 poems, and to be the first one, there's no real reason. All of a sudden, everyone's reading your poem now, and you're like, did I do bad? What's going on here? Only to find out, no, you actually did good. And it was interesting. I wrote a poem about this thing, and everyone's like, well, I got this thing from it. Someone's like, well, I got this thing from it. Someone's like, well, I was also thinking about this. And I just kind of just sit there, and I was like, I kind of just wrote about what it was like as my childhood and riding my bike around the neighborhood, and someone got like all these different things from it. And then it kind of hit me. I was like, what if a poem about pancakes written by some prolific poet was just about pancakes? But like someone took it and they're like, oh, it's probably about this, and then it's about that, and so on. And then like as an artist, I had to just kind of sit there, but yeah, that was what I was going for. You got it. Like, and I will say, like I look back and maybe I just tapped into something that struck someone in that same way that Javier Bardem did. He wrote something and it affected people. It affected everyone, not just a few people. Everyone came from far and wide to come do this one thing, and I was like, maybe that's just Aronofsky. Maybe Aronofsky is like, and again, and now you're reading into it, you're like, maybe it's this bigger picture. I'm like, maybe it's actually a smaller picture, but like with just a one metaphor type situation. But he's like, okay, it affects you that way. I'm just gonna let it happen.
See, you bring up a lot of interesting things. I love your description of people reading things into your poem that you didn't put there.
Yeah.
But the thing is, any reader. I would argue that that's their job. I would say just because the artist didn't intend to put it there, doesn't mean it's not there. Because Christopher Nolan said about the ending of Inception, oh, I know the definitive ending. I know what happens, but I'm not going to say it, because in a way it's not mine anymore. It's out there in the world. It's there for people. He literally said this. It's there for people to rip to pieces and judge. And I feel like just because the author or the director in this case doesn't intend something, doesn't mean that viewpoint is no longer valid. Because I mean,
how much does author intent matter? That's a whole other discussion.
I mean, here's my thing: the author's viewpoint, matters as much as the next moviegoer, which I think every moviegoer's opinion matters. But that also means that if one person in the audience, their interpretation, I think has just as much value as the creator.
That is true.
But of course, I understand. From the creator's perspective, as perhaps you felt. Of course, it's irritating to people look at your work and say oh, I understand you. I mean yes, that's their job, but no one wants that. No one likes that feeling. I mean, it's a horrible feeling. I felt that.
Yeah. Well, okay, I will concede that it's true. Sometimes it might not be what you intended, but how it affects someone, you can't help that, and that makes sense. I mean, I know that I've probably heard several pieces. I'm like, this is how it affects me, and someone's like, I'm glad it affected you that way. Not that.
I love that.
Not that.
That's
They didn't.
such a great
And
response.
they didn't say, you got it. They were just like, good for you. That was basically what they gave me, and I'm like, okay, I guess that's what we're gonna leave this with.
See, I'll tell you.
But I'm still gonna go with Mother's not worth spending $8 or $10 on.
I would have to say I wouldn't just openly recommend people to see it. I mean,
No.
if you
fair.
if you like Aronofsky, if what you've seen so far intrigues you and you're open to it, then yeah, go see it.
Yes.
And I hope you enjoy it. But I don't know that I would just put it out there like go see this movie.
Yeah.
Okay, so before
it's not a crowd pleaser.
no,
Yeah,
so before
no
the
argument
movie,
there.
before the movie started, I asked you all. I was like, because I think most of us went in this fairly blind.
Oh yeah, I
Yeah,
went to it
same here, yeah.
purposely.
So I asked this as a group. I was like, right now, without saying anything, what do you think you would rate this?
Jesus, I gave it 3.5 stars.
No,
And I have a minor problem with it.
before it started.
Before it started.
Like, if you were
I
to give
have
it
no
a
idea.
letter grade, like before, I think I asked Mo.
Predicting how
like,
you would react.
like how will I
ultimately?
react? Like, because I mean, I very rarely get to go into a movie where I know so little about it.
Well, what did you predict?
I predicted I'd probably give it a C.
Okay.
I mean, I felt very.
Would you give it a C now? Or
No, I
would you
would
go
give
lower?
it a D.
Okay.
I would go D only because, again, like I said, there are so many pieces of it that work. There's obviously a metaphor going there. There is a message. I think it's just too muddled. And yeah, I can't forgive bad writing. It's. I mean, I'm sorry. That part where she goes, "Oh yeah, you can't even fuck me," and then he just fucks her on the stairs, and then she wakes up and she just goes, "I'm pregnant." I'm like, I get it. That was the whole overall theme, but I was like, really? We couldn't have gone with literally any other plot device. Like, she's just omnipotent, wakes up, I'm pregnant. Even Javier Bardem's like, oh, I know, we had sex. That's great. She's like, no, I just know I'm pregnant. And then the next scene is she's pregnant. I was like, I don't know. I had an issue with some of the writing.
Sure, but I think up to that point, we already established that we're not in normal time. It's surreal.
No, and I think even with that in my brain, I was still like, really, that was the words we were going to go with. We couldn't have found any other way to say this.
Within like 2 minutes, she was already like.
Oh no! Again, I've experienced time lapse in a movie before. I can go, oh, that one scene obviously happened months ago, and now we're here because she's clearly pregnant. It was the wake up, look at the light outside, and go. Okay. I'm pregnant. I was like, okay.
I have to be really boring and agree with both of you. I agree that it was ridiculous and that it made sense in the context of the world that was established.
And that's the problem. It can't do both. It either needs to make no sense or all the sense. You can't go, it makes no sense and all the sense.
So your problem is that it didn't commit to its own stylistic.
Kind of. I feel like there was a lot of. Again, I feel like. In the moments where it was quiet, it felt like one movie, and in other moments, it felt chaotic and just emotions, and then it felt crazy, and then I felt confused. Like, the way it made me feel was not ideal, and not in the, oh, this is artistic. It felt messy. And again, we as reviewers see enough movies to kind of go, I think a normal person would go, that was dumb. That was how they would define it. I was just kind of like, that felt messy. It didn't feel enough.
I can't get into Aronofsky's mind, but I would have to guess that he did that on purpose to make people uncomfortable.
And then I come back to again what an Aronofsky would probably go, yeah, I did. Like whether or not he meant to.
Well, here's the interesting thing. I mean, Mo, you bring up the idea of committing to intentions. I think I would argue this. This movie sets terms for itself. It sets a language for itself. I would argue that it delivers on the promise of those terms and those language. I think then it becomes a matter of I'm sure he fulfilled his vision because it feels like a committed vision. Mm-hmm. The question is for each individual person, does his commitment work for them? I admired it and it didn't work for me ultimately, even though I thought it was sort of a complete, fully fledged expression. But I interrupted you, Mo. Go ahead.
This is why I have difficulty assessing what I think of this movie. When I grade a movie, when I judge a movie, it's less on is it good or is it bad or something like that. It's does the movie make its intentions clear and does it succeed in the goals it sets for itself. And most the bad movies that I see that I remember, that stick in my mind, they get to step one, they don't get to step two. This one, I can't argue that it doesn't commit to its ideas, that it doesn't see things through to the logical extreme. Again, baby cannibalism. I was not surprised.
Which is a sentence you very rarely get to say.
Yes. So thank you for that.
2017. That's
Thanks, 2017. You're the best.
Yes,
baby cannibalism. Not surprised.
It was the logical extreme. It set itself up if we're going to fulfill this idea of she puts everything into this world for herself and the poet just gives it away, then we have to see it through to the end. Do you need to? Okay. So at the same time, I can't say that I enjoyed watching it. I can't say that I got a lot out of watching it. I can't say that it was.
It was horrific.
It was effective.
Yeah.
It was
Absolutely.
effective in the moment, but is my life improved by having seen it beyond the knowledge of this is what an Aronofsky movie looks like?
Don't judge it on this one.
This is what this movie looks like. I know we say that there's no such thing as useless knowledge, but this is pushing it.
Yeah.
Art is not always pretty.
No, yeah. Well, and I wanna speak to that, because I mean, and the idea of useless knowledge, again, I'm gonna go back to The Fountain as I often do. You know, the Fountain is a horrific movie in its own way. You know, the main character, the person who's most important in his life, dies, and in the end, he dies as well, or does he? It's all very mysterious. That's why I love it. But here's the thing. You know, the Fountain goes through. You know, takes us through hell. It shows a guy stabbing himself with a pen. It shows a guy flogging his back, and yet it comes. You know. Is honest about, you know, the pain of these characters, his experiences, yet, you know, has something to say about it. It has more to offer than, you know, just like, you know, life is horrible, you know, because the main character, you know, lets go of his obsessions and kind of ascends to a higher plane, and that's, you know, that's beautiful, even though he, you know, suffers in doing so. And I guess why I believe me, I want to love Mother as much as I want to love any Aronofsky movie, but that's why I can't love Mother, because I feel like what I get in the end is a message about, you know, as I said, the cycle starts over. The same horrible thing is going to happen again and again. Is that honest? Yes, that's often what happens in real life.
Yes.
But if I'm going to go to the movies, I do want something more than that. I do want a movie that, you know, is, you know, not necessarily going to make everything okay, but, you know, offer more than just, you know, I am a tough director. I can show you the darkness, you know?
I don't see a violence point, though.
Okay, yeah, say more about that.
It
Yeah.
doesn't celebrate the horribleness that happens.
Well, but then I would agree that
it's
in
indulgent,
some,
but it's not celebratory.
but you know, I mean, there's again, I bring this quote up too much, but it's so perfect. You know, A.O. Scott said it's in moviegoers' natures to, you know, find pleasure in the moving image. You know, that means, you know, that you know, I mean, this movie is entertainment. Every movie is entertainment. Even the most horrific movie out there is entertainment.
I don't know that this was meant to be entertainment, which is why I don't recommend it for anybody. Which is why I don't openly recommend
I definitely
it.
don't recommend it to my mom.
I wouldn't.
I don't,
I don't know.
like saying this because it's a little pretentious to say, but I would say this is an art film.
No, it is.
You're right.
There is. There. I mean, you know, love it, hate it. It's an art film. You know.
I would call it a bad cupcake with
It's a piece of
sugar.
art.
It's sweet, but
I mean,
not. But I wouldn't recommend it as like an end of the night treat before you go to bed.
Well, I mean, you know, talking about, you know, these ideas. I mean, you know, art film is, you know, kind of a distinction that really, in a way, has nothing to do with opinion or good or bad. It's a quality. It's, you know, kind of testing these limitations, and, you know, which I would argue it does.
I mean, what I felt like it was trying to do, it did really well. And just to clarify, I'm not saying that I loved it so much that it's an entertainment piece, that it entertains me so much that I'm going to have it on my Blu-ray, that I'm going to watch it as much as I do Inception or other movies that I love.
Sure.
But
sure.
I thought at the same time, I recognized that it was done very well, that it did what it was trying to do as a piece.
Well, this brings us back to when we were at a market of choice, and I talked about. Do you have to go?
I need to get going. Dude.
Okay. Do you want to say anything before you go?
I would
a quick farewell?
I would say rent Mother if you like Aronofsky films. I hate to say don't go see a movie in theaters, but don't go see this one in theaters. There's no shame in
It's not a
renting.
date
There's
movie.
no shame in renting a movie, and
There is never shame in renting. Renting is a dying art.
renting is a dying art, and honestly, if you were in love with Aronofsky, go see the movie. That would be my end point. But if you're just kind of okay, then don't, and that's fine. Rent it, and read the reviews and make your own choice from there, or listen to us because we're smart. But I gotta go. It was lovely hanging out with all of you.
Max, thank you so much for coming.
I hope you guys get a great end point to this.
Good seeing you, man.
Alright, bye guys.
I'm very tired.
I'm very tired. We'll wrap this up soon. So what I wanted to say is that this takes me back to when we were at Market of Choice, and I talked about you know what I sort of smartly, sort of ridiculously termed the cinema of the damned. You know, movies that just kind of exist to sort of torture the audience, and I stand by that theory. I think they're movies that belong in that classification. But you very rightly challenged me on that, Mo. You pointed out that sometimes it's worth going to these dark places in cinema. Sometimes it has value. So, and I think this is what you're nodding toward, Patrick, as well. And just because something's horrific, doesn't mean we consign it to like this ordeal that no one should experience necessarily.
Having worked with you this few years now, I can see how you're sensitive to certain types of things in films, and I can understand that. And that's fine. I think that's cool.
Yeah. No. Yeah. I mean. Again, here's the thing. I mean, like, I think, I'm absolutely, sensitive to certain things in films. You guys saw me blubbering over Han Solo twice.
Yeah.
And I feel like some people are going to say, you can't be sensitive about that sort of stuff. But I say, the point of a critic is to be an individual voice. You have to bring your baggage in. There's no there's no such thing as objective journalism. Even when you're doing objective journalism, criticism and editorial is that, but much more literal. So, but that was a tangent. Sorry.
No. I mean, the Han Solo thing is a good example of what I was just trying to say. I mean, you seem to react very negatively to that, and I can understand that. But I think in terms of writing, I thought that was very brave writing of them to have killed Han Solo the way they did that way. And I think that's going to resonate in the next two films.
I've said a lot about that. I won't say anything more.
Yeah. Okay.
Otherwise, we'll be here for 2 hours. But I mean, as much as I hate that scene, I'm sure it will endure. I'm sure for better or worse.
I got nothing else.
Shall we wrap this up? Shall we tie this off? Hopefully not by burning this booth to the ground.
Oh yeah. No, we're gonna wrap this up, and I'm gonna get some fries, and I'm gonna.
That sounds good.
I'm gonna be comfortable.
I'm gonna say one more thing. We had a pretty wide range of opinions on this movie from different ends of the spectrum to somewhere in between. Yeah, and that is
that doesn't happen a lot for us.
Well, and also that's kind of like the magic of this sort of bold auteur-driven cinema. Even when in the case of me, we don't like it. It's like you get to have a hell of a good conversation. All right.
So of course, what we just said here is we just saw the film like an hour ago, so I think I would have to. There are two aspects of this that I want to give a little more thought to: the way they were photographing the film, because a lot of the imagery is still burned in my head, and whether some of the action scenes were a little too gratuitous. And I'm not talking about the baby scene. I'm talking about all the other things.
I think it works. Like I'll be honest, just the chaos at the house at the end of the second act. That was my favorite part of the movie, and
it was pretty ridiculous.
That was my favorite too. Yeah, and it was deliberately ridiculous.
Yeah,
it's deliberately like we go from just a book signing to war
in like less than 10 minutes.
Yeah, and again, something about me. I get stuck in my own head a lot, in movies, just in general, but definitely in movies, and. I was on the edge of my seat. My heart was racing. I think I said this after we saw the movie. I think that shaved off a month of my life watching that scene.
Oh, I was on the edge of my seat.
But if a movie can emotionally affect me in that way, I can't discount it. I can't just write it off. Like
if the point was to disorient the viewer momentarily before it concluded, then I think it works in that respect.
Yeah. I mean, this is like again, it brings us back to the question, about movies, kind of, fulfilling what they set out to do. Like I think you said, Mo, taking things to their logical extreme,
or surrealist logic.
Yes. Yeah. Even though like I didn't like the movie, ultimately I have to respect the purity of the vision. And again, the commitment, and that chaos was pretty brilliant. I mean, that was pretty well staged.
Yeah.
Are we about exhausted? Are we ready to sign off?
That was a crazy movie.
Oh yeah.
That's a bit of an understatement, my friend.
Oh, yeah. I think that's crazy. Crazy's the word. Crazy's the word. That's all I got.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's the perfect note to wrap up on. Thank you, all of you, for listening. If you like this podcast, and why wouldn't you? It was really raucous. Click thumbs up and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Don't forget to like us on Facebook. And please check out all the great reviews and content we have at thomoviereviews.wordpress.com. Once again, I'm your host, Bennett Campbell Ferguson. I'm here with Patrick Belin. I'm here with Mo Shaunette. I was here with Maxwell Meyers. And from all of us here at T.H.O. Movie Reviews, I feel weird about saying happy movie watching. We're talking about
Good movie watching.
Interesting, thought-provoking movie watching.
Now let's all go vomit.